Hey, Kelly, thank you for joining me today on Pop Culture Unplugged.
Thank you for having me.
Exciting times. We got a couple of California Dreams concerts coming up. How excited are you for these? I know that every cast member that I follow online, they're pushing it. They feel all pumped and everything. You see little videos that they keep releasing. What's your thoughts on all this?
So I just enjoy being with those guys so much that I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's really a fun way to just reconnect again and to meet fans, of course, that at this time of our lives, our fans are pretty diehard because they've been following us now for 30 plus years. So it's really fun to meet them.
Yeah. And the listeners, the viewers that tune into this also, you guys did a reunion show about a year and a half ago now in New York.
Yeah, in
How did
October.
yeah, how did that all come up? I mentioned I spoke to Brentley also. Whose idea was it to get this going at first?
So Jenny and I would say about 4 years ago, it was before COVID. So five
Okay.
years ago, we went to a concert of a pretty popular girl band. And I looked at her and I'm like, we could do this. And she's like, you're right, we could do this. We would just have to produce it ourselves. So about a year after that, right before COVID, we decided to give it a shot and we did a show in LA where we had me, Michael, William, Jenny, no Jay, no Aaron, no Brent, but most of us. And it was such a huge success. It sold out in 20 minutes and it was
Wow.
so much fun that we were like, let's do this again. Cut to COVID hit. And so we kind of had to take a pause. And then once things settled from COVID and we got to talking again, we're like, let's try it again, but let's try it on the East Coast this time. And so
Mhm.
that's what we did. And we were able to get the entire cast back together for that, which was epic and minus Heidi. And it was very successful. So now we're just like, well, let's just kind of play it by ear and see if we can do a few more. That's
Mhm.
kind of how it happened.
What's the plan now? Is there like has there been talks about like even doing like a little tour around the whole country?
We have definitely talked about that, and I feel, and Jenny feels that it would be hugely successful if we went overseas. I know the bulk of my fan mail comes from England and Ireland and Germany, and so if we could somehow finagle like a couple shows overseas, that would be our ultimate goal because it would make fans so happy. But really, for me, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, it's just if I can do this once or twice a year and get to be
Yeah.
with my friends that I worked with for so long, I am a happy girl.
There you go. How do you and the cast like prepare for shows like these?
I know for me, again, I can't speak for everybody else, but for me, I was noticing yesterday, I'm like, ooh, my voice is getting a little hoarse. So I'm going to kind of be more aware of that in the next couple of weeks so that I am prepared. But no, I really we try to get it out there just so that everybody knows about it and we don't get any, oh, I didn't know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, there's really not a whole lot of prep going on. I have 4 children, so I have to prep, figuring out what
Right.
to do with them while I'm gone. But
Do you do like a rehearsal like a day or two before the shows? Is that like how you usually guys do it?
yeah, we have managed to just do a rehearsal the day before, and it works great. Thank goodness. I think in this case, I want to say we're going to be able to get in 2 rehearsals before we actually get this show off the ground. So that's good.
Mhm. How often do you sit around and sing Surf Dudes with Attitudes?
Not very often. It
But
is really
that's the
tough.
song that everybody wants to hear, of course, when they
I
first.
know, I know. I actually do need to get a little more refreshed on my harmonies because they're difficult. And so I think that I should practice those a few times. But I was gonna say my kids actually freaking love the show and watch it all the time. So it's always on in the background these days. It's kind of fun.
What do you think was the big appeal back in I grew up in the 80s and 90s also. Like, what do you think was the big appeal to this show? What made the viewers and the fans tune into this, you think?
I really think that it had a lot to do with being on the heels of Saved by the Bell, which was such a huge success in the Saturday morning genre. And then you add in the music element and it was just a gift. It really was because it was so much like Saved by the Bell as far as the friendships. And then we had this band that we really enjoyed being in and could sing.
Mhm.
And it's on the beach. Everybody loves watching, shows about California life, and
Yeah.
so I just think it was a combination of many things, but that mostly was the music for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, like for you, like how was it being part of like this show in the 90s? Like how different was your life back then?
For me, being a part of the show was incredible because Saved by the Bell was my favorite show. So to
Everybody
be on
said.
a right, so to be on a show like that with such a huge built-in audience already, it was just dream come true. So basically, I got that show when I was still in high school, and my life changed drastically overnight. But for me, it was a dream come true because my favorite show was Saved by the Bell. So to book a show that was same producers, same directors, we were filming next door to them. It was amazing. And then to top it off, on the same day that I signed my contract with NBC, I also signed a contract with MCA Records.
Oh wow.
When does that happen? So I floated around for an entire year going, how did this just happen?
Mm. So being on a show like this also, was there ever any talks about like doing like a crossover with Saved by the Bell at one point or everything? Because I know people were talking about it back then.
Yes, there was. And I think it really could have happened if Saved by the Bell, when they ended, when they wrapped, they were like done. They had
Okay.
tried I think
Yeah.
they were just tired and wanted a break because they had been on for so long before we started. But even now, it would be hysterical to do some sort of mashup, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's always just been talk. I don't think that it's ever really been something that anybody's cared enough about to make it happen.
Right. And for you, for this show also, like how do you think like it impacted your life and career after this show ended? You moved on to did Baywatch, you did a few films and everything, but like, do you think how much did this show help you with your career after?
I'd like to say that it helped quite a bit. I know that I had already done a few guest spots on Baywatch, so they were very aware of me, and they wanted me to come on the show when Nicole Eggert left, but I was in the middle of doing California Dreams, so I couldn't do that.
Mm.
As soon as California Dreams ended, I went on to that, but I feel like it helped me be taken a little bit more serious on the show because I had already acted for 5 years on this other show. Now, outside of that, do I want to say I was kind of pigeonholed going from California Dreams to Baywatch Babe? A little bit. But it helped because of the notoriety of the show. I was able to do hosting gigs. I was able to
Mm.
parlay my career into that. So I think it was a positive all around. I do not look at it as a bad thing or a detriment by any means.
What do you miss about Tiffany from back in the day playing this character?
Oh gosh, I just loved how I watch her and I'm like, oh my gosh, she was such an airhead. But I loved how everything was positive with her, everything. And she was just always lighthearted and never took anything too seriously. And if we could all be like that, we'd be in a better place.
You're right. You're right about that. Yeah. What do you think with California Dreams also? I asked the same question to Brentley. Like we don't see it on TV that much and everything. And one of the things he told me is the music rights. And that's part of the reason why it doesn't get aired. Has there been any more talks about eventually get this on a streaming platform?
So that was actually my thought as well, is the only reason why this show is not on a platform like Peacock where it would be so popular is
Yeah.
because I think somebody owns the music and they're not willing to give it up. Having said that, I don't know who exactly it is, whose hands it's in, but if they could just sign a little something, then I think it could easily be streamed right now.
Right.
Um, I know that I haven't reached out to anybody personally, but I feel like Jennie made a connection with one of our producers and asked him, like, "Hey, how come we can't do this, make this happen?" So hopefully it will.
Yeah. Well, with the question I was going with this too is like, because eventually, if it ever gets released and people start watching it more and more, we could see a spinoff. We could see a
Oh yeah,
movie or something, or like, like where are
yeah.
you guys 30 years from now or something like that? Would you want to be part of that?
Absolutely. And I totally agree. I think when people talk about the show, they're like, oh my gosh, I remember that show. And it just takes a minute for them to go back to their childhood like that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, and would you like if they ever said to do something like that? Would you want to be part of like behind the scenes, like to write the story? What would you want to do?
I would want to be involved in any way that they would like it.
Mm.
But I know Jennie and Michael and I had this really fun idea just sitting around and talking one time about we could do a show where Jennie and I are roommates and Michael's hard on his luck and he has to move in with us. So it's, Tiffani and Sam and Sly living together, kind of like a three's company. And
Yeah.
we got such a kick out of the idea of that we're like, let's pitch it. And then we never did anything.
Yeah. I know you for when I was doing research on you also, of course I grew up, I watched the show, I watched you and everything. You took a break from acting. Would you ever decide to come back in the acting world to see you in something? What's the like the update on
What's
this?
the idea? Yeah. So I really, really, truly feel that I still have something to give to the business. And I do think that some of my best work is still ahead of me. I really do. And I just don't know what that looks like yet.
Yeah.
I am willing to do auditions and work, but I now live in Texas. So that's going to be a little more
Right.
difficult. But having said that, now that my kids are older in a good place, I think I can really try and bring a lot to the table.
Mm.
I don't I look forward to that. This is as good as mine it's going to happen, but I
Right.
would like to try.
That's awesome. Last question. What is something that you want to tell the California Dream fans that watch this interview or listen to it on audio? Like, what's one thing you want to tell them?
Oh my goodness, I just feel so it almost makes me emotional, but I feel so connected to our fans because they really have stuck with us all these years. And to hear their stories about how they watched the show from 12 years on all the way up, and they bought the CD, and they've come to these signings and things, it just warms my heart because I am the same way. I am a starstruck idiot. So when I met Olivia Newton-John, for example, I blubbered like a baby. So I understand. I understand, and I can relate, and I really appreciate all their support, like genuinely.
There's actually this con, I don't know if you've heard of it, the 90s con. It's getting pretty
Yeah,
big now. There's one that comes in my area and there's one now in Florida. Like that's something that California Dreams could be on.
I totally agree. And I'm kind of dumbfounded that they haven't reached out to us. If you have any connections, by all means, you could drop a line. I know our fans have pushed for it because it really would be cool. And I see the people that they have there, and there's no reason why
Yeah,
we shouldn't be a part of it, especially because all of us still talk and we all still
right.
get together. So we could all be there, you know?
Kelly, before we end this, plug in your concert one more time, July 12th and 14th. Where exactly is this, and how can the fans find tickets to go see this?
You got it. So we're going to do two concerts and meet and greets before both concerts on the 12th of July and the 14th of July. That's a Friday and a Sunday at the Ziggy Hotel on the Sunset Strip in California, LA. And you can get your tickets at bit.ly.com, which is bit.ly.com. And you can do a backslash and it's 90s Dreams 24, and you can do KP for me or any of the actors. But you can get your tickets on Bitly. So by all means, grab your tickets. We are so excited to see you and be there and sing with you and have fun.
Yes. Kelly, how can the listeners now the viewers find you on social media? I know you're back on Instagram because you lost your account for a while. I noticed that.
That was one of the biggest nightmares of my adult life, was being hacked on Instagram. Who knew? But I can still be found at the Kelly Packard. No blue check mark yet. I guess you got to kind of wait and ride out the process. But I went from like 15,000 followers to 1,000 because they don't know where to find me. So find me on the Kelly Packard.
Amazing. Kelly, I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes. Good luck with the show. And
Thank
maybe we'll see you in 90s Con eventually too.
That would be so awesome. Thank you so much
So
for having
thank
me.
you.